I hope that this series has been really good for you. I mean, it's been really good for me. It's been really good for me to be in the pages of Song of Solomon. It's been really good for me to hear the stories of what God's doing through this series and in the lives of the people in our church. Whether you're single and you're getting an accurate theology of dating, what it looks like to be attracted to someone, what it looks like to date them, to court them, and prepare yourself for a godly marriage, or you're married. And maybe you're married for however many years and you're looking back, and I've heard over and over and over again, I wish we would have done this when I was younger. The good news is that the Lord is still giving you breath. And so your marriage moving forward can be something that's life-giving to you and to your spouse. So last week we talked about something that is not fun in marriage, but inevitable and can in fact be a positive thing. We talked about conflict. And we got the privilege of watching this couple go through conflict in a godly way. Walking through God's design for healthy conflict. Healthy conflict moves a marriage forward. Unhealthy conflict moves it backwards. And so we got to see the spark that ignites everything. There's always one thing somebody says or somebody does that ignites a conflict. Some of you that experienced that on your way to church this morning. And you're sitting next to each other like everything's just fine because now you're in public. And so there's always that spark, and then what follows the spark is the anger, right? Anger wells up in one or both of us, and we start to figure out, hey, I don't like what just happened. And so anger builds, and then a lot of times one of the parties involved will withdraw, and we saw that in the story last week as well, as he withdraws now from this conflict that's going on between him and his wife. And a lot of times that's where conflict ends, right? Conflict will end there, or it might end with like a knockdown, drag out, yelling match, but it doesn't take the next two steps, which we see in God's full circle of healthy conflict. And that is, we got to see each of them pursue humility. They came to a place where they realized their faults. They understood they had a part to play in the conflict, each of them, and they, out of humility, pursued reconciliation, and then we got to witness that reconciliation in their story. Now, as we open up the pages of Song of Solomon, we're going to do all of chapter 7 today, so if you have your Bibles, you can flip open to Song of Solomon chapter 7, and as we do that, I think there's a myth in marriages. It's a sad myth. It's perpetuated by TV shows like Saturday Night Live, different parody shows that happen on TV, or different things that people say just in passing in our world. And that myth is that marriage is a ball and chain. It's something all of us in this room have heard, right? The old ball and chain. Oh, you got married, now life's never going to be like that. It's all downhill from there. No, it doesn't have to be. And this myth is causing havoc in our society, because what we're seeing, and there's a chance that it's starting to reverse, which I'm really excited about, but what we're seeing in our society is we're seeing the numbers of marriages start to go down. More people are single later into their lives than ever before. People are getting married later and later in life, if they're getting married at all, because this myth of maybe marriage isn't such a good thing has started to take root in our society. And so people are living together but not getting married. People are having sex together but not getting married. And what ends up happening inevitably is children are born outside of wedlock, growing up without a mom and a dad together, and our society is starting to degrade because of it. All, maybe not all, but in chorus with this myth that marriage is a ball and chain. We see the dating process play out, and dating is like this incredible rush of adrenaline, right? Every time you meet that person, you're like, oh, this person could be great. And then you have the adrenaline of like, I got to ask them out, or is he going to ask me out? Like, I don't know. And then you go out on the first date, and it's just one giant adrenaline party where like you're hanging on every word each other's saying, like you're just hoping that you don't like have food in your teeth or like whatever. And like this adrenaline rush. And that really carries over in the relationship to the newlywed stage. Newlyweds, you don't really have to work much to keep the spark alive. Like the spark is just there. It's a pilot light, and all of a sudden it can come on at any moment. I mean, we all been there that are married. We remember those newlywed years or months. But then the place where this myth gets traction is as we start to deepen. As our marriages start to deepen and we spend more and more years together, what we see is the adrenaline we had when we were dating and the spark we had when we were newlyweds, it starts to fade. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in a relationship that doesn't look like what it used to look like. Now, when we're dating, we have some tricks up our sleeves. These are gender-specific tricks that we use in order to find our mate. Our society has grown to figure out ways in which we can attract our mate, and it looks like this. For males, the trick is romance. Right? We are never more romantic than we are when we're trying to find our mate. Like we will pull out all the stops. I did like surprise Valentine's dinners for Kristen where like I made my mom cook because I couldn't cook well, and like my mom's slaving over the stove, and then I'm like, okay, Mom, go away. And I think to this day she's not here. She's watching online because we have a sick kiddo. Thanks, camp. Blame Matt. It's his fault. But I think to this day, she still thinks I made that dinner. And like I pulled out all the stops. I was like, there are things we do as men to show our women that we can be romantic. And then the newlywed phase ends, and all of a sudden our wives are left looking around going, where's that guy? Where's the flowers for no reason guy? Where's the cook me dinner? Where's the take out the trash guy? Like I don't know where he's been, but he doesn't come out as often as he used to. And for females, it's sexuality and flirting. Chances are that you were much more flirtatious when you were dating than you are 20 years into marriage. In fact, we just had this conversation the other night because Kristen, she likes to say that she doesn't know how to flirt. And I say, babe, it's in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere because here's the deal. When we were dating, you were very flirtatious. And 17 years into marriage now, I'm hearing I don't know how to flirt. So let's try and bring that person back out. And she looks at me and she's like, how about we bring this person back out? Well, the message today is how do we keep these people out? How do we keep these tactics, not just for dating, but for marriage? How do we use them in a marriage that's deepening to continue to meet the needs of our husband or our wife? And I think as we enter into chapter 7, we're going to see that despite the narrative and the myth that marriage is a ball and chain, the myth that the spark inevitably goes out, it doesn't have to be that way. And we're going to see now that conflict is in the rearview mirror, but it's not irrelevant to what happens now in chapter 7. Chapter 7 is going to give us two things. The first that it's going to give us, and we're going to deal with it kind of up front, is a theology on make-up sex. And we're coming straight out of conflict, and we're going to see the importance of make-up sex. It's in the Bible. So this is not like email Mike, I don't feel like it. Okay, it's in the Bible, and I'm going to talk about why I think it's important. But we're also going to see a theology on growing older together in a healthy way. How do we keep the spark alive deep into our 30 and 40 and 50-year anniversaries? We left off, and the couple had just had a big fight and then reconciled, right? We covered that. And what flows out of that conflict is now a need and a desire to come back together physically. And we're going to see that play out now here in the pages of chapter 7. But why do they have that need? Like, why is there a need to come back together physically? It's a question that I've been asking as I've been studying this. And I think the answer is this. When you're in the middle of a big fight, When Kristen and I get sideways and like, she's like, you always do this and you never, and I'm like, you never do this. And we use those curse words in marriage, which is never and always, which is never true and always bad. But when we're in those moments, and we fight just like y'all do, when we're in those moments, I don't look across at her and go, that's the most desirable woman I've ever seen. I look across and go, that's the most wrong woman I've ever seen. And she's looking at me going, what an idiot. Like, how can you think you're right? And we're in this butting heads moment, but neither one of us is like, let's pause this fight. Let's go be physically intimate together. We'll come back and solve this later. No, we're not interested in physical intimacy when things are sideways. And the truth is, when people come into my office and they need marriage counseling, typically what we see is the marriage goes bad and the sex starts ceasing to exist. Because the worse your marriage gets, the less physically attractive or less desire you have to be physical with your spouse. It's a typical thing. Now, there are those weirdos that get charged up by conflict, and they do pause in the middle of conflict or whatever, but it's not me, and it's not most of you. And so we see that couples don't have sex when things are sideways in their marriage. They don't have sex. So when you're in conflict, what's important, when the conflict ceases and reconciliation happens, it's important to come back together physically, because the physical intimacy is the stamp on the reconciliation. What you wouldn't do when you were conflicting, in the middle of conflict, you will do now that you're reconciled. It's the stamp that says, hey babe, we're okay. We're good. And we're so good that I want to show you just how good we are. And so you come back together. Now all of a sudden things are where they should be, and all is right in the world. And as we open up chapter 7, we're going to see this couple prioritize meeting each other's needs after conflict. They're going to come together. They're going to meet each other's needs in a way that ensures that their marriage is going to continue now to give life to each other until death do them part. Take a look at verse 1. He's speaking. It's the man speaking, and the first thing we're going to see is that he's going to make an effort. Now, all throughout the pages, we're going to now transition from makeup sex, which we're done talking about, to we're going to talk about what we see deepening look like within a marriage. And the Bible's really interesting. As we do this, we're going to see two things. First, we're going to see what women want in their husband as their marriage deepens. And then we're going to transition into what men want as their marriage deepens. And so these are not, neither list is exhaustive, but this is just some advice that I think Song of Solomon gives to all of us. I think they're not exhaustive, but I do think that it's true. So we're going to find out what do women want as their marriage deepens? And the first thing we're going to see in verse 1 is that a woman wants someone who will affirm her body. Now look, bodies change over time. Bodies change, women have kids, and people get older, and I'm more wrinkly and have less hair than I did the day that Kristen married me. Bodies change. But I've never met a woman who wants their husband to think poorly about the way they look. Never. And so no matter what, a woman wants someone who will affirm her body. Look at what he does. He says in verse 1, "How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand." Now, how do I know their marriage is deepening and they're not newlyweds anymore? Two reasons. First, he starts with her feet. Like, no newlywed is thinking about their wife's feet. Like, it's just not happening. Second, he talks about her rounded thighs, her hips. No newlywed can get away with talking about their wife's hips. And so we're looking at this, and he's affirming now from the feet up. He's affirming the physical attractiveness of her body. He says in verse 2, your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Now, a couple things. How many of you men have ever complimented your wife's belly button before? Apparently, it's God's guidance to us. So, he compliments her belly button. He says, your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. And then he says, your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Now, I started to think, well, what does that mean? I've never really heard this as a pickup line before. And he's talking about her belly being a heap of wheat. Well, there's two different consensus when it comes to what he means here. The first is this. If you look at wheat, you start to see how it's separated and in a row. There's some thought that maybe he's complimenting her that she still has a six-pack. I don't know, maybe. I hope that's not the standard, but maybe that's true. But either way, here's the other possibility. This is a heap of wheat. And what they would do is they would package the wheat together and they would cinch it in the middle. And that's how they would carry the wheat that they had just cut to wherever they needed to get it. And so they would cinch it in the middle with like a rope or something like that. And what you notice in this wheat is you notice the hourglass shape of the wheat. And so either way, whether it's option one and she's got a six-pack, or it's option two, he's complimenting the shape that she's kept herself in over the years. Now, I don't have any indication that her body is perfect. I don't have any indication that she's not a normal human being, but I do think he's complimenting her on the effort and the results of the effort that she put in. I think I do a little bit of working out. I work out. We have a gym at our house. I run. At one point I was running half marathons. Now I run a mile. But I work out for one reason. Just one reason. Like, I don't love running. I would rather be eating than being in the gym. I work out for one reason. That's because I'm afraid Kristen will leave me if I don't. Obviously, I'm kidding. I'm obviously not that worried about that. But the reality is that I believe my wife deserves a husband who works hard at not letting himself go. Now, it doesn't mean that I have control over every aspect of my health. It certainly doesn't mean that my body looks better than other people's bodies. Like, it just means I have the responsibility of working hard to be my best self, to put forth my best effort. Now, some people are dealing with other health issues that gets in the way. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about effort. And I think we all have a responsibility now to put forth our best effort to be our best selves when it comes to our body. I know my wife will never leave me. She will love me no matter what I look like. But I also know that she's more attracted to me when I take care of myself. She will love me no matter what, but she's more attracted to me when I take care of myself. Now, this actually plays out sociologically and scientifically. It's not just a Mike Cirricione observation from the text. Science backs it up. Just a few little things for you that science tells us. First is that engaging in sexual activity contributes to improved physical health by lowering blood pressure. Men, take notes. This is a really good pickup line. Lowering blood pressure, enhancing immune system function. You will not get sick as much, lovely bride. And enhancing and promoting better heart health. Less chance of heart disease. I mean, this is a big study. It was put on by all men. Additionally, sexual activity plays a pivotal role in mental well-being, reducing stress and anxiety while fostering overall mental health in a person. Emotionally, it's been linked to heightened self-esteem, decreased depression, and increased libido. Furthermore, the positive impact extends to improved sleep, heightened intimacy, and pain relief through natural means. Now, here's why it matters. All that stuff scientifically proven to be true. But here's why it matters. Because the end of the study says the more you're in better shape, the higher correlation there is to sexual fulfillment. The better, I see it with me. Look, the better shape I'm in, the more confident I am, and the better sex we have. And so all of a sudden now we get this math equation. It's a very simple math equation. It looks like this. Better shape equals better sex equals more sex, and more sex equals better health. Therefore, if you're in better shape, you're going to have better health because you're having more sex. Science doesn't lie. And what we see is this woman has worked hard to stay in shape for her husband. And he makes sure, here's the key, guys. Look, a woman who works hard to stay in shape deserves our praise and our admiration and our appreciation. But so often, a woman will work hard and men won't even say jack about it. And that doesn't feel good. But here, she works hard to stay in shape, and he makes sure she knows that he sees it. He shows his appreciation. And as he continues now in verse 3, we're going to see a familiar metaphor as he moves up her body. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. This dude loves deer. I'm like, man, this is several times you've gone to that well. But he loves deer. And some things just don't change no matter how old you get, right? I mean, he's admiring her body parts as he moves now up her body. And so he continues to affirm her body deep into their marriage now. The second thing that she needs is she needs someone who will affirm her character. So it's not just about her body. Look, here's the deal. Single people, listen up. Take your earmuffs off. Listen to me, especially dudes. If you go out on a date and you just sit there and you're at like Blue Coast Burrito or something, and you go to give her a compliment, you're like, oh, you're so hot. That's not going to work. That's not what she wants to hear. But here's why this matters. Because this is not something easily seen. When she walks in, you can see everything about her except for her character. And so when you take the time to affirm her character, you're affirming something that is deep within her. You're affirming something that is tied to her very being, who she is, her identity. And so a woman needs someone who will affirm her character. This is what he says in verse 4 and following. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon. By the gate of Bath Rabbim, your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks towards Damascus. And what he's saying is, he's saying your neck is like an ivory tower. We've talked about that before. Like she's a woman that can hang her head high, hold her head high. She walks around with dignity. Her neck is like an ivory tower, strong and vertical. Her eyes are like the pools in Heshbon. These pools have actually been located through archaeology. And what's amazing about them is the pools in Israel were meant for a few reasons. They gave refreshment to the people that lived there. They were refreshing. So he says, your eyes are like pools in Heshbon. And he says, who you are, oh beauty of mine, who you are is refreshing. Like when I'm around you, when I gaze into your eyes, I'm refreshed. Not only that, but these pools were deep. I've stood at the edge of one, and like if I would have fallen into this empty pool, I would have died. Like they're that deep. And so he looks at her and he's like, not only are you refreshing, not only do you refresh me, but there's a depth to who you are. And he's looking deep into who she is and affirming her character. And he says, your nose, this is a weird flex, your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks towards Damascus. And this tower has not been found. Likely it's in rubble somewhere, but apparently there was a tower that pointed towards Damascus. And he says, you're like that tower. And Damascus was the place where all the enemies would come from. And so the tower would face Damascus, where the enemies came from, which emphasizes her strength and her strong character. She was the tower placed to defeat all the enemies, and she's got this incredible strength about her. And so he affirms her character in verse 4. But a woman not only needs to be affirmed for her body and for her character, she also needs someone who will affirm her beauty. And this is different than her body. Her body is physical, her beauty is greater. And so in verse 5, we see him begin to do this. Your head crowns you like Carmel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. Now, he's not talking about candy. You see, the C is capitalized. It's a place. It's a place called Mount Carmel. It's not the highest peak in Israel, but it's one of the most beautiful. It overlooks the Mediterranean, and the views from Mount Carmel are amazing. And he says, your head crowns you like Mount Carmel, and your flowing locks are like purple. Now, we know purple is the color of royalty. He's pointing to her regalness, the regalness of her beautiful hair. And he says, so much so that this king, King Solomon, is held captive in the tresses. I'm captivated by your beauty. Now, there's not a woman in the world that doesn't want to hear that. And she is sitting here taking all of this in. I'm captivated by your beauty. And then he says to her in verse 6, how beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. And he just affirms her beauty, the beauty that she's brought into his life, the beauty that he gets to look at. He's just continuing to pour on the praise. And then in verse 7, he's going to do the last thing on our list today. And I think a woman needs someone who will affirm her desirability. Look, of all the things that fades, I think this one's one of the hardest. To think that someone who desired you so much when you were first married no longer feels the exact same way is tough. And I think we all have an innate desire inside of us. We have this innate desire to be wanted by our spouse. We have this desire that someone that we're married to would long for our touch. And as the years go on and as the marriage deepens, a lot of times the thing that fades the most is this feeling like you're desired. And yet every woman in here needs to know that their husband desires them. And look what he does. Verse 7, your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. So he mentions her stature, but then I think he just says this to say verse 8. Verse 8, I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine and the scent of your breath like apples. He says, you're like a palm tree I want to climb all night long, baby. And at face value, we're like, oh, dang. Like that is some heavy language right there. Like that is some serious desire. But you don't know the half of it. Because if you don't understand the backstory of this verse, you're missing half of the beauty of what he's saying. See, palm trees back in ancient Israel were so desirable. They played a major role in the economy of Israel and the way that the families would be able to afford different things and take care of their family. And they were so desirable that they didn't leave the pollination of palm trees to chance. So not only is he saying you're like a palm tree, which is incredible value, this is what they do in Israel. They climb the palm trees and they scrape out. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. Palm trees are fascinating because they have male palm trees and female palm trees. So the female palm trees can't make little palm tree babies unless the male palm trees pollinate the female palm trees. So they climb up the male tree and they scrape out all the pollen, and then they climb down and they climb up the female tree and they sprinkle the pollination, the dust on the female tree. So let's go back to this verse with that understanding. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. He's saying, I want to pollinate you, babe. It's straight up, that's what he's saying. Like, I want to climb you and I want to pollinate you. It is a little bit funny. Like, it's giggly, I get it. But that's what he's saying. He's like, hey, I want to pollinate you. And then in verse 9, he's going to continue to lay it on. Watch the beginning of verse 9. It says, and your mouth like the best wine. And he's just going. He's going. And in verse 9, something interesting happens. She cuts him off. She just cuts him off. He's like heaping all this praise on her, and she's receiving, and she's listening, and she's like, I need to tell you something of my own. And so she cuts him off, and she begins to meet the needs that men have. So now, for the rest of the passage, we're going to see what do men want as their marriage deepens. And the first thing she's going to do in the latter half of verse 9 is she's going to show us that men need someone who will be responsive to his advances. So these are advances. You don't say, babe, I want to pollinate you, and her not know what you mean. And so he's making advances on his wife. And now in verse 9b, she's going to respond. She says, it goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. Your fine wine goes down smoothly. And she shows now that his advances are being met with a positive response. There's excitement and agreement over what's about to happen. And she says in verse 10, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. Now, this word desire in the Hebrew is the word sukkah. The T is silent, sukkah. And in Hebrew, that word is seen elsewhere in Scripture, but it's only seen two places. So if we look for this word sukkah, this word desire, it's only seen two places. The first is in Genesis 3:16, where the fall has just happened, and now God is speaking to Eve, and he says to the woman, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. And then he says, your desire, or sukkah, shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. He says, your desire, sukkah, shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. It's also found in the next chapter, where God's talking now to Cain. He says, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire, or sukkah, is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. And so, this word sukkah is not just merely desire. It's the word for an all-consuming desire. It's an all-consuming desire. It's this thing where she's now looking at him and she's going, his desire is for me. This all-consuming sukkah desire is all for me. It's a beautiful picture of what their relationship looks like. And so she responds well, not out of obligation, but out of desire. And she affirms his desire as she now begins to share and meet the needs that her husband has. In verse 11, we're going to see her meet the next need. And I think men need someone who will initiate passionately. Look, that desire to, or that need to be desired is more than just a female trait. Women, your husbands need to feel desired. They need to feel like that even though they've got less hair than when you married them, even though they've got some gray in their beard that maybe you find distinguished looking, they need to know that even though the kids have worn him down a little bit and he's showing the age of a career well worked, that even though the years have deepened and the marriage has gotten longer, that your desire for him is the same as the day you married him. Men need someone who will initiate passionately because that's the way we receive the message that we're desired. Look, Kristen will tell you, I mean, she's not here, so. She will tell you that I initiate every single night. I don't even know I'm doing it. But I think that what's interesting is over the years, there's been just a fading of this that naturally happens. And we've had to do some work to get back to where it's not happening. And I think the big thing is men need to be desired as well. She says to him in verse 11, "Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages." So when it says lodge in the villages, I want you to think like hotel weekend away. Like, hey, let's go, let's get away. There's just the two of us. I have some advice for the women. Okay, so this is male knowledge being imparted into you. If you want to drive your husband crazy, if you want him to know that you desire him, here's what you do. You plan a weekend away without telling him. You plan a weekend away, and you send him a text. And the text says this. Men, if you get this text, just know you're welcome. It says, pack a bag. You won't need much clothing. Oh, and I'm going to Victoria's Secret, pink or black. Pink or black. Watch him. Like, he will go crazy. Like, the funny thing is men are so predictable. This is all they need to feel good about themselves. To know you thought about it, to know you cared about it, to know that you care about them enough that you're willing to put the forethought and the desire into planning something like this. And that you're willing to wear something from Victoria's Secret even though it's really uncomfortable probably. It will make them feel so good. And they will do anything for you. Because in that effort, you're reminding them that they're still desired. They're still somebody who matters to you. And then she says, let us go out early into the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. In other words, while we're out on this weekend getaway, let's see how sweet the delight of my body can be for you. She's saying, hey, we're not just going to relax. We're going to reconnect. After all the conflict, after everything we've been through, we need this getaway, the two of us. And then finally, we're going to see that she's going to show us as she meets the need of her husband that men need someone who will get creative with him. Men need someone who will get creative with him. She says in verse 13, the mandrakes give forth fragrance, and beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. Now, she talks about these mandrakes. Mandrakes are kind of like raisin cakes. Back then, they were seen as a fertility aid or as an aphrodisiac. It's back in Genesis 30, there's a story about Jacob and Rachel and Leah. And Rachel wants to be intimate with Jacob, and Leah has the mandrakes. And so Rachel basically bribes Leah to give her the mandrakes so that she can give them to Jacob, her husband. And so we see these mandrakes playing a role. And so she says the mandrakes give forth fragrance. Like I can smell the aroma of aphrodisiacs in the air. And so she says, beside our doors, probably a better way of thinking about that is the word behind our doors. So, and behind our doors are all choice fruits. And so not only are they're choice fruits, but she says these choice fruits behind our doors are both new as well as old. In other words, she's got a plan for this weekend. She's got a plan for their time together. She's going to bring out some of the best hits, some of the greatest hits, like things that she's going to bring out the go-to things that they've done for years in their marriage that have worked. They've been tried and true and left both of them satisfied. But she also has some new ideas on what they might be able to enjoy together. And look, she realizes that her husband and a need of most men, not all men, but most men is to be creative and to try new things. And so she's going to bring out the old and the new. And she understands now that his desire for sex is a journey of exploration for the rest of their lives. I think about it this way. I like food. I can eat any time of day. I don't need like breakfast, lunch, dinner. I can make up meals. I just make up names for them. I can eat. I love food. And I love to go out to restaurants. And, but I'm the type of guy, maybe you know somebody like this, where I order the same thing at every restaurant I go to. So like Chili's, Chili's is not a new restaurant. Like it's been around for some days. Like it's been around for a while. And I've only ordered two things there in my whole life. The chicken bacon ranch quesadilla, and the chicken crispers. That's it. Like if I go to Slim Chickens, it's very easy. You just have one choice. Like it's like get chicken strips. Like that's it. I went. Jason Wood and I. We went to on Friday. We went to Golden Grill, which, by the way, if you haven't been, you should definitely go. It's very good food. And we went to Golden Grill. I walk in. He's with me. I walk in, and the lady that works at the front desk is like, "Oh, you just want the usual?" Yep. Just a regular bowl and a glass of ice water. And she's like, you got it. And like, it's just, that's how I am. And I'm guessing you know people like that in your life. It tends to be more of a male trait, I think, than female trait. But what I'm about to say, most men might be like that in a restaurant, but they're not usually like that in the bedroom. They're just not like that usually in the bedroom. Look, not every man is the same. But a lot of men are looking for someone in their marriage as it deepens who will get creative with him. Because here's the thing. Years pass. And for some people, it's like, man, we've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. And as things start to fade, one of the big reasons they start to fade is because things start to get boring. They start to get the same. You're in a rut. And whatever those new things are, that's a chapter 4 message. Like you get to decide what those new things are, but the goal is to keep things fresh. She realizes that coming out of conflict, that they needed a freshness to their love life. And it was her job. In that moment, she saw an opportunity to meet his need and get creative with him. To keep things fresh. Because after you've been married for 17 years, things can tend to go stale. I don't even eat Cheez-Its that have been left out for a day. let alone 17 years in a marriage. I think as we grow older together, we have to fight the urge to drift into a rut where we just do things because we've always done them. I know it. The truth is it's comfortable in the rut. It's normal, but it's also boring. Marriage and sex is not meant to be boring. It was meant to give life to you. One more time, I want to put up the truths from this chapter. The things that I saw and others have seen in the pages of chapter 7. And the truth is for wives, look, men, if you are someone who affirms her body and someone who affirms her character and someone who affirms her beauty and someone who affirms her desirability, I can make a promise to you, your marriage will not get worse. It will only get better. She may need different, each one of these differently or in different amounts, but I promise if you do all 4 of them, she's not going to look at you and go, how dare you? How dare you speak kindly of my body? How dare you speak kindly of my character? How dare you speak kindly of my beauty or my desirability? She's not going to look at you and go, how dare you say those things? Now, different women desire different levels of affirmation, but they all want it in some form or fashion. And wives, if you are someone who will be responsive to his advances, someone who will initiate passionately, and someone who will get creative with him, he's not going to look at you and go, why did I marry you? He's going to look at you and go, thank you. Because I know by these responses that you care about the health of our marriage, that you care about my needs. No husband's going to have these 3 things and say, why did you make our marriage worse? If we take the truths out of chapter 7 and we apply them to our marriages will be lifted up. And here's why it matters. It does not matter simply because you will get more pleasure. That's true. But that's not the end result. It goes back to the whole reason why we did this series in the first place. Because if we focus on what God's word says for our marriages, then our marriages will get healthier. And if our marriages get healthier, then we will put forth to the community something that the church has statistically and historically done an awful job of doing, which is portray health and excitement in our marriages. And you know what, Jesus says something interesting about marriage, that it's one of the closest things to the relationship between Christ and the church. So if all of a sudden somebody who doesn't know Christ goes out to dinner with you and your wife and go, man, what is up with you two? You seem so happy. And you just go, yeah, we are. We've been working on our marriage. God's word has been flowing over the health of our marriage. And they go, man, I want that. And you look into their eyes and you go, well, friend, you can have it. And it starts with Jesus. For the community to look at what's happening in the walls of our church and go, what is happening at Barfield and what is happening at Calvary? And how can I have that? Man, that is why we're doing this series. Not so you can just have more pleasure. That will be a byproduct. You're welcome. But it's so that God, through the teaching of his word and the doing of his word, would receive the glory so that other people outside the church might see something they want and turn to Jesus. Your marriage might be the key to somebody you know and love being in heaven for eternity. That's why this matters. That's why my hope is that as a church, we leave this series in a few weeks in our rearview mirror, but we leave it with all the hope in the windshield of all the things we want to do to continue to invest in our marriages for God's glory and for the good of others.